Imagine IELTS speaking test like a giant battlefield. You step in thinking you're ready to shine, but suddenly you're ambushed by hidden traps, sneaky enemies, and even your own brain. Yeah, that was me when I took the IELTS speaking test. But today I'm here to share my experiences with you so that you can walk out of the battle victorious. So if you're ready, let's start. Hey there, welcome to my channel. If you're new, my name is Ghazal, a pharmacist by degree but a language lover at heart, and in this video I'm going to talk about my IELTS speaking journey. And we're going to talk about 7 monsters, as I've mentioned, and we are going to learn how to win these battles. Okay, our first monster is the silent swamp. Most of us think we need to pause, think about a question, and give the perfect answer, but that's wrong. Start instantly, do not pause, because if you pause, you will just drown in the silent swamp. Yeah, that's right. But how to start instantly? Well, the best way to start instantly is by rephrasing the question. By rephrasing the question, you're buying yourself some time to think about the question, generate some ideas, and add your own taste to the answer. And also, you're showing the examiner that you are comfortable with daily conversations. And if you have overcome this monster, let's get to the second one, which is the over-prepared robot. When I first started to prepare myself for the IELTS exam, I was encountered with 1,000 apps and prepared answers and questions, and I was really obsessed with them because they had perfect answers. But that's really dangerous to memorize those answers because examiners might understand that you have memorized those answers, and in these cases, they start asking you new questions. And if you've memorized lots of answers, your mind getting used to memorizing, and it cannot generate new ideas. So that's really dangerous because the examiner know that you are just acting like a robot, and know that the examiner do not want a Siri or ChatGPT. They want you. They know that you're not perfect, and they want the same thing because they're human. They know that you're not perfect, but they want you to be yourself. So just be comfortable with yourself. And if you do this, you are really likely to face the third monster, which is the vocabulary volcano. When you memorize prepared answers, when you read classic books, you encounter with 1,000 fancy words, and our mind like to grab these words and throw them in our answers. And that's really dangerous because sometimes we misuse these vocabularies, we use them in the wrong content. For example, you learn meticulous, and then you start using meticulous like, I meticulously change my learning routine. But, well, grammatically that's not wrong, but if you say this, that doesn't feel right. And to be honest with you, when I was preparing myself for the IELTS exam, I was reading notes from The Underground, from Fyodor Dostoevsky, and this book has lots of fancy words, like, let me show you. Let me find some fancy words. Like, inwardly, or averted, or mire. And these words are not used in daily conversations, not in IELTS exam at least. And if you use them, you'll just fall into the trap of losing points. So, do not use these fancy words. Try to feel more natural. Imagine your mother tongue language. You do not use fancy words in your daily conversations with your friends or your colleagues. You just try to feel normal. You know, the daily conversation is not full of these fancy words. So do not do the same thing with English, and do not use these fancy words. And when you've overcome this monster, we go to have a battle with one of the most dangerous monsters, which is the accent monster. To be honest with you, I've not encountered with this monster. I was really obsessed with the accent thing, but after taking the IELTS exam, lots of my friends asked me, how did you work on your accent? How did you make it better? What did you do? Which films did you watch? Which podcasts did you listen to? And I was like, the accent is not important. And that's it. You know, the examiner is not looking for a good accent. They just want you to be able to speak and have a conversation with other people in English. And to be honest with you, there are lots of people around the world speaking English, and they have their own accents. They do not speak with British or American accent, but they can speak, they can have a conversation, and that's okay. That's the only thing that the examiner is asking for. So do not get obsessed with the accent thing, because if you get obsessed with the accent, you will stop studying for the exam, and you would stop focusing on things that are actually important. But our fifth monster is really important, and that's where I lost the battle, and that's the idea desert. When I was preparing myself for the IELTS exam, I tried to listen to lots of podcasts and I had lots of ideas. But on the very day of the exam, when I saw my cue card, my mind just went blank, and that was where I lost point. And after the exam, I thought, well, that's not the only situation that I'm going to think about an idea and give my answer to a question. So what can I do? And I started to think about this monster and how to overcome the battle. And I decided to have like a way for myself, a solution. And my solution is to have a map in my mind. The map is composed of M, A, P, and S. So it's maps. And the M is the main idea. The A is anchors. The P is the personal story. And the S is safety phrases. So, for example, if the examiner asks you to describe a city, you will be like, okay, my M, my main idea, is the name of the city. For example, for me, that's Tokyo. So I write down Tokyo. And then we get to anchors. What are the anchors when you want to talk about your favorite city? You talk about the culture, you talk about foods, you talk about the places that you want to see, and if there is something special about a city. And then you get to the personal story. For example, I've never been to Tokyo, so I would start with how I fell in love with Tokyo. Like, I watched a film, and in that film I saw some scene, or I was scrolling down on Instagram and I saw some pictures, or I read a story, and blah blah blah. And then we get to these safety phrases. You remember I told you do not memorize answers? Well, there is stuff that you have to memorize, like safety phrases. For example, when I want to talk about my favorite city, I would say what I'm drawn to. Or another thing is that phrases like this, have phrases like this in your mind, so that when you want to talk about a subject, you can expand it and talk about it for 2 or 3 minutes. This way, you will answer questions and your mind won't go blank, because when someone tell us to talk about a subject for 2 or 3 minutes or even 5 minutes, our mind just goes blank, because we think about, okay, 5 minutes is lots of time and I cannot talk about the same subject for 5 minutes. But when they ask you in part 1 and 3 questions and you want to give short answers, that's easy for you. But the second part, that's the hardest part for most students. And this method can help you to overcome the fear of speaking for 2 minutes, and that can help you to have ideas for the whole 2 minutes. Okay. You've learned how to overcome these battles, and probably by now you've learned lots of things. But there are also 2 other monsters, the Grammar Goblin and the Fear Dragon. The Grammar Goblin is a goblin inside our head, and it's start to talk with us when we want to speak, like wrong tense, oh my god, the same mistake over and over again, and it would shut up. So the only way is to go on. When I film videos in English, which is my second language, or when I was preparing myself for the IELTS exam, the goblin was talking all the time. And the only thing that you can do about it is to ignore it, to keep going, because I doubt if I stopped filming videos in English, I would be more successful in my language journey. Or if you stop speaking, you would get a better mark on the IELTS exam. Well, that's not true. The only thing is that you can go on. Well, you can see I make mistakes, and I'm not going to cut this part because I want you to see that all people can make mistakes, and that's truly normal. The only way is to go on and let yourself make mistakes, learn from those mistakes, and become better. So ignore that goblin inside your head and go on. You'll make it. And as I've mentioned before, the examiner is not looking for perfection. So just be yourself, make mistakes, and be comfortable with those mistakes. And if you have learned all the tips that I've taught you, let's get to the last one, which is the fear dragon. To be honest with you, I've lost point on this part as well. So when I started to take the exam, my palms started to sweat, my heartbeat rose, and my mind went blank. I asked the examiner if I could take a glass of water and then start the test, and the examiner was like, okay, that's okay. Take your time, and when you are ready, we can start the test. But even when we started, I was really nervous, and I know that when we are taking a test, we cannot feel like we are at home. That's really hard to feel like you're at home, you're preparing for exam, or you're speaking with your friend. There is this feel of nervousness inside ourselves, and you cannot do anything about it. The only way is to practice under pressure, to time yourself, to record yourself, watch it over and over again, find your mistakes, and also speak with strangers. Okay, so that's the only way to overcome this battle. That's how you can win the IELTS speaking war. Yeah, that's a war, as I have it in my mind. That's like a war, that's like a battle, and you need to win in this battle, please. So, I'm really happy because I've shared all the tips that I had in my mind with you, and I hope those tips would be helpful for you. That was the monsters that I've encountered or know that you will encounter during your exam. But if there is another monster inside your head, please tell me in the comments so that I can help you. And also, if you like this video, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more language tips. And see you in the next video. Bye!